And Tom, this is effectively the Prime Minister's last major speech. He focused on nuclear energy. He's been banging on about it for a long time, but it is very much he views as part of what he would want to see as his legacy.
Yes, and it's a very good legacy point to end on, I suppose, because these are long-term issues. In fact, there's a famous video now of Nick Clegg speaking back in 2010 saying that we can't possibly go for nuclear because it's not a solution. It would only come on stream in 2021, 2022. Well, look where we are now. So potentially this sort of announcement is what Boris Johnson wants to see, wants people to revisit a decade from now, looking back at this sort of turning point in nuclear energy, because, as he mentioned in that speech, it was only in 1995 that we constructed the last nuclear power station in this country. Then there were 2 decades of indecision, of no new decisions, of no new investment, of really retreating from nuclear. And in that time, China built 50 nuclear power stations. Our European friends and neighbours built dozens of nuclear power stations, and we built none. He really zeroed in on Tony Blair and Gordon Brown not constructing any nuclear power stations, and saying that Margaret Thatcher and John Major built them, although he didn't quite mention the indecision from David Cameron or Theresa May either. But I suppose there is now this growing consensus that nuclear energy is clean, is safe, is reliable, and is necessary to deliver greater energy security in the future. It's just such a shame that it's come now, because, of course, more British nuclear reactors are being decommissioned over the next decade than those that are planned to be built and get going.
And the other problem, of course, is that these things don't happen today or tomorrow or even the day after. And yet, obviously, we are still facing an autumn and winter that's going to be incredibly difficult. This is not going to deal, essentially, with anything that's going to happen over the next coming months or years. Boris Johnson alluded again that there will be more cash for people, and yet we still wait. We still wait to find out who's going to win this damn race.
Absolutely. Well, the Prime Minister made it very clear upon the moment that he resigned that no big new changes in policy direction would be announced from Number 10. In fact, it's arguable whether this Sizewell C announcement today is a departure from that commitment, and some people may argue over that, although the Prime Minister had previously said in speeches in the House of Commons before he resigned that he wanted to bring about a new dawn of nuclear power in this country, that he wanted to go from building 1 nuclear reactor a decade to 1 a year over the next 8 years, however those averages work out. So arguably, he's continuing this policy that was already announced, but clearly this is a decision as well. The big point that his spokespeople have made over the last few months is that this is not a government that feels able to make those decisions, or that would be constitutionally right in making those big policy decisions, changes in policy, big spending decisions, binding the hands of the next administration. That's something that cannot be done. So yes, we're going to have to wait until Tuesday and the new installation of the next Prime Minister for those big decisions to be made.
And just very finally, Tom, last hustings were last night at Wembley. I was there. You would have thought, in many ways, actually being there, that Rishi Sunak was about to win this race, given the number of supporters there and how enthusiastic they were. But it was in London, which I think Rishi would probably consider as home territory to a large degree. But what we did get is lots of commitments from Liz Truss, left, right and centre, looking into smart motorways, no more taxes, etc., etc., etc.
Absolutely. Read my lips. Yeah. No new taxes, as Nick Ferrari asked her to commit to. Now, that's something...
Very George W. Bush.
Very George W. Bush. Something that many people say condemned George W. Bush to being a one-term president in the United States of America, losing, of course, in 1992 to Bill Clinton, and indeed Ross Perot getting a sizable chunk of that vote. It's not
an excuse, this programme, Tom, just to show off your knowledge.
Well, it's important to look at the context, because the right was split in that presidential election in 1992. A lot of Republicans splitting off because of that broken promise on taxes. Clear promises like that from Liz Truss. We can draw a clear analogy, I suppose. She has cast herself in an ideological mould that she wants to be, in many ways, the first ideological Prime Minister in this country since Margaret Thatcher. She's been saying across the course of this campaign that she will not forget that she's not only Prime Minister for the country, but also leader of the Conservative Party. A funny phrase that she wrote down in the Conservative Home website. It's almost an inverse version of the phrase that we so often hear from Prime Ministers when they become Prime Minister, saying, I'm not just a Prime Minister for those that voted for me, I'm a Prime Minister for the whole country.
Yeah.
Liz Truss basically saying the opposite, that she will govern as a Conservative, which I think some people feel that for the last 12 years, and yes, various shades of hung parliaments and coalitions and not Tory majority governments, but even so, people have felt that the Conservative Prime Ministers that we've had over the last decade or so have not always been party-faithful Prime Ministers. Liz Truss making some very big promises to the party last night that she will be that Conservative Prime Minister, that she will govern as she has campaigned, that she will not raise taxes and that she will endeavour to grow the economy and thereby shrink the state as a proportion of GDP. Some really big promises made there, and a lot that she'll have to live up to if she wins this contest.
Indeed, and other big wider questions, of course, about where that leaves the Red Wall, who in many ways voted for Boris Johnson because he didn't seem to be necessarily a Conservative Prime Minister. But that is a discussion for another time. Tom Harwood, as always, thank you very much indeed for joining us.